Ambassador Kethara's delicate exoskeleton trembled as she transmitted the emergency message across the galactic network. Her people, the Veltani, had exhausted every diplomatic channel, every legal avenue within the Galactic Council. The mining consortium from Drex Prime continued their illegal operations on sacred Veltani burial worlds, poisoning the crystalline formations that held the memories of 10,000 generations. "This is Ambassador Kethara of the Veltani Collective," she spoke into the quantum transmitter, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of desperation. "We formally request aid from any civilization willing to assist in stopping the desecration of our ancestral sites. The Drexian Consortium has violated 17 interstellar treaties, but the Council claims jurisdiction disputes prevent intervention." She included the coordinates, the evidence of treaty violations, and a cultural briefing explaining why the crystal formations were sacred. What she didn't expect was a response from the Galactic Quarantine Zone from a species the Council had classified as too dangerous for general contact. The reply came within hours, transmitted on an encrypted frequency that bypassed all Council monitoring systems. The voice was rough, speaking Galactic Standard with an accent that suggested vocal cords evolved for a much denser atmosphere. "This is Colonel Marcus Webb of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We received your message, Ambassador. We're en route to your coordinates. Estimated arrival, 6 standard days." Kethara's primary eyes widened in shock. Humans. The Council had designated their homeworld as a Class X II Deathworld, a planet so hostile that surviving on its surface was considered mathematically impossible. The few xenobiological reports available described creatures that had evolved in constant conflict with their environment, developing redundant organ systems, aggressive immune responses, and psychological profiles that bordered on the pathologically resilient. They were exactly the kind of allies she needed, but also exactly the kind she feared. The human fleet that dropped out of hyperspace 6 days later was unlike anything in the galactic databases, where most civilizations built elegant, efficient vessels optimized for specific functions. Human ships looked like they'd been designed by someone who expected everything to go wrong simultaneously. Redundant armor plating, backup life support systems, and weapon arrays that suggested a species that prepared for war as a matter of course. Colonel Webb's shuttle docked with the Veltani diplomatic vessel, and Kethara got her first look at a human in person. He was shorter than she'd expected, but built with a density that spoke of high-gravity evolution. His skin was scarred, his eyes held a wariness that never fully relaxed, and when he moved, it was with the controlled precision of a predator. "Ambassador," he said, extending a hand in the human greeting gesture. His grip was carefully modulated, strong enough to convey respect, but not so strong as to damage her delicate bones. "We've reviewed your situation. Before we proceed, I need to ask, are you certain you want our help?" The question surprised her. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" Webb's expression darkened. "Because when humans help, things tend to get. We don't do half measures, and we don't leave problems unsolved. Once we start, the Drexian Consortium won't just stop their mining operations. They won't be capable of mining operations ever again." Kethara hesitated. The Veltani were a peaceful species, evolved from crystalline organisms that reproduce through harmonic resonance. Violence was not just foreign to them, it was physically disturbing. But watching her ancestral sites being strip-mined had pushed her beyond desperation. "They must be stopped," she said finally. "Whatever the cost." Webb nodded grimly. "Then consider it done." The human approach to the problem was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Instead of filing protests or attempting negotiations, they began with reconnaissance. Human infiltration specialists, individuals whose genetic modifications allowed them to survive in environments that would kill most species, penetrated Drexian facilities with an efficiency that terrified the galaxy's intelligence services. Within 48 hours, they had complete dossiers on every consortium executive, every illegal operation, and every bribe that had kept the Council from acting. But more than that, they had something that made the civilized galaxy recoil in horror: evidence. The humans didn't just document treaty violations. They documented everything. Mass graves of indigenous species wiped out for mining access. Slave labor camps hidden on asteroid facilities. Ecological terrorism that had sterilized 17 worlds. The Drexian Consortium wasn't just violating mining treaties, they were committing genocide on an industrial scale. Sweet suffering stars, Ambassador Yethmor of the Rigelian democracy whispered as he reviewed the evidence packets flooding the galactic networks. How did we not know? The answer was simple: no one had looked. The galaxy's civilized species had developed a comfortable system of plausible deniability, bureaucratic delays, and diplomatic immunity that allowed atrocities to continue as long as they were committed quietly and with proper paperwork. Humans, apparently, didn't believe in proper paperwork when it came to genocide. The consortium's response was predictably arrogant. CEO Vex Noth, a bloated Drexian whose wealth came from 1,000 worlds suffering, issued a public statement dismissing human concerns. "These Deathworlders have no understanding of galactic commerce," he announced from his palatial corporate headquarters. "Their primitive concepts of justice and morality have no place in civilized space. I call upon the Council to remind these barbarians of their quarantine status." The transmission cut off mid-sentence. Security recordings from the headquarters showed what happened next. Human soldiers, not the heavily armored space marines the galaxy expected, but individuals in simple environmental suits, had somehow materialized inside the most secure corporate facility in known space. They moved with a fluidity that suggested gravity was optional, and when consortium security tried to stop them, the humans responded with a violence that was both surgical and terrifying. CEO Vex Noth found himself in a courtroom that hadn't existed an hour earlier, facing judges whose authority came not from governments or councils, but from the simple fact that they had the power to make their verdicts stick. The trial lasted exactly as long as it took to present the evidence of genocide. The sentence was swift and absolute. Across consortium space, similar scenes played out. Mining facilities shut down, not because of legal injunctions, but because their operators had simply vanished. Corporate accounts were emptied, the funds redirected to reparations for victim species. Slave camps were liberated by soldiers who treated armed resistance as a minor inconvenience. The galaxy watched in horrified fascination as an entire interstellar corporation ceased to exist in the span of a week. Not destroyed by military force or economic warfare, but surgically excised like a cancer. Ambassador Kethera stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching as automated systems began the delicate process of rehabilitating her people's sacred sites. The crystalline formations were already beginning to sing again, their harmonic frequencies restored after decades of industrial interference. "I don't understand," she said to Colonel Webb. "Your species could have demanded payment, territory, trade agreements. Why did you simply help?" Webb was quiet for a long moment, watching as Veltani cultural experts supervised the restoration work. "Ambassador, your people asked for help stopping treaty violations. What we found was something that required judgment. What's the difference? Help is what you give to someone who needs assistance. Judgment is what you bring to someone who hurts children and calls it business." His voice carried an edge that made Kethera's exoskeleton shiver. The consortium wasn't just breaking laws, they were breaking people. And humans have very specific opinions about that. The aftermath rippled through galactic civilization like a shockwave. The Council, faced with the reality that humans could and would act outside their legal framework, hastily rewrote dozens of treaties. The concept of humanitarian intervention entered galactic law for the first time, along with enforcement mechanisms that actually work. Other species began to study human psychology, trying to understand how a civilization could be simultaneously capable of such violence and such compassion. The answer, according to human philosophers, was simple. They were the same thing, viewed from different perspectives. "We don't help because it's convenient," Colonel Webb explained in his final report to the Council. "We help because someone needs to. And when helping requires judgment, we bring that too. The galaxy can call us barbarians or Deathworlders all it wants, but call us when someone needs stopping, and we'll stop them." The message was clear. Humanity wouldn't seek to rule the galaxy or impose their values on peaceful civilizations. But for those who preyed on the innocent, who hid behind bureaucracy and legal technicalities while committing atrocities, the Deathworlders were watching. And they were very, very good at finding people who needed judgment. In the months that followed, interstellar crime rates plummeted to historic lows. Not because of increased enforcement or better laws, but because everyone knew that somewhere out there, humans were listening for calls for help.